I was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and then when I was around my daughter's age, or about 3, the family moved back to Pakistan for a few years, and then when we shifted to Glasgow, we're in Scotland now. Like, and at this point, I don't even speak English. I was looking at them through the lens that this person will be the mother for my children. She's going to be their first teacher. They will love her more than they love me.
Now you found out that you're going to have a baby girl.
Oh, bro.
What are your thoughts going through your
I
head?
was not ready. Suddenly, I turned into sort of father provider mode, and all the insecurities kicked in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second guest of Raising Humans. Today, we have a good friend of mine, Hamza. Not Chowdhury.
Not Chowdhury, no.
Hamza Chohan. Okay. He lived in the same area that I used to live in. And we became friends, playing a lot of sports and paddle together. He's my paddle coach. So anyone that is interested in paddle, you should hit him up. Because actually, some people might take that seriously.
I'm not a paddle
he
coach.
does love playing paddle.
But I'm not a paddle coach.
But he's not a paddle coach.
The rumors are not true.
Hamza, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hamza, tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of parenting. Or tell my audience.
Yeah. So I'm a parent. I've got 2 kids.
Good.
A girl and a boy. My daughter is 3, and my son is about 9 months. So fairly still feel fresh to it all.
Yes,
but,
yes. Have you felt that there was a difference in how you raised the girl and the boy? Not raised, actually. Did you feel that there was a difference when it came to like the challenges for a boy and a girl?
Well, so far he's still small.
Yeah,
so he's still small. So I think it's the way they've been when they were babies that young. When my daughter was a baby, for me it was all new for once. She was the first one, right? So when it's the first one, everything is fresh. So we're figuring things out on the fly. But when my son was born, it was a lot of, okay, we've been here before. So those kind of anxieties and kind of uncertainties were gone. It was just, we knew what we were doing to some extent. Then for him, because he was a boy, it's something different. I feel like what my wife must have felt like when my daughter was born.
Do you feel more close to him?
No, I wouldn't say close. I'm closer to my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very close to my daughter. But then he's more like, I don't know. I feel like I can see myself.
Okay.
Putting a lot of what I believe and who I am, kind of imparting that into him.
Yeah.
With a bit more sort of, I don't know. There's some relatability there that you can't get with a daughter.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is that when raising children, you always, for me, I don't know how it is for you, that I always look at what the potential challenge is going to be when they're older. So now I've got 2 sons, and I'm always thinking, okay, these are the things that they'll need to, these are the skills and qualities they'll need when they're older. But now I have a daughter as well. And the reality is that her challenges may be a little bit different. And the things I'm worried about for her when she's older is different for the boys. And did you think that at all? Or do you think that the challenges will be the exact same?
I think because obviously I've been through stuff that as a guy, as growing up as a young boy, as a teenager, as a man, getting married, going through life up until now, having children. I think since I've been through it, they don't seem as scary to me. So I feel like for the boy, it won't be as difficult since I've been through it. But I always see from a daughter, the challenges to me are a bit, still a bit unknown, a bit at arm's length away, where I haven't directly experienced them. I can only understand them through my wife, through my sister or other women in the family. So I don't know exactly what that's going to be like for her. But I rely on my wife to kind of then reassure me and tell me, look, it's going to be okay. I usually don't think that far ahead, because I feel like times are changing so much, things are changing so fast that even for my daughter right now, I'm just trying to make sure that right now, the way she is, a 3-year-old going to 4 to 5, this period of her life makes sense, and she's sort of not building any insecurities young, and she's just being a kid, right? And maybe they're not that old yet where the schools haven't kicked in yet. So those realities of their young life haven't really kicked in for me right now. Yeah.
We were talking about challenges. What challenge, when you were growing up, so what I want you to do is put yourself into the seat of like your mom or dad. What challenges do you think they were worried for you as kids? Because the reason why I ask this is that the challenges that we have to worry about for our kids is different.
So different.
So I'll give an example. Is in Leicester, I grew up in Highfields, so shout out Highfields. It was a very rough neighborhood. Yeah, so there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of knife crime, that kind of thing going on. Obviously, when I was younger, I didn't really think it through that much. So my dad was really, really strict, and there were curfews, and there were certain things that he wanted, and he kept a quite a tight grip. And at that time, I didn't understand why. Now, being a father myself, I completely understand, because the challenges were different. The things that he had to worry about were completely different to what we, as parents living in Dubai as well, the challenges are going to be a lot more different. So the question I'm asking is that when you were growing up, and then, I don't know whether was that in Scotland, Pakistan, like, what challenges do you think they were worried about?
I think, so for me, when I was really young, so I was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and then when I was around my daughter's age, or about 3, the family moved back to Pakistan for a few years. So my earliest memories of sort of nursery, or I've got some memories from nursery from Scotland, but then early years in school, beginning school, those really young memories at 5, 6, 7 years old are all in Pakistan.
Why did you guys decide to move?
I think simply my dad wanted us to have a really good connection with our family back home.
Yeah.
And he wanted us to have a good connection with our culture, language, all of that. So he didn't want us to be so we don't have any family in Scotland other than my immediate family.
Okay.
So everyone is back home. So back home meaning Pakistan. So we went back for that. And then once we got a bit older, like I was 7, 8 years old, my brother was about 12. So then we moved back, and he decided, okay, for schooling and everything is better over there, so we'll shift back. But the experience that we had as young kids in Pakistan was completely different to when we got to Glasgow.
Okay.
So when we were in Pakistan, we were surrounded by family. In the street that I lived in, there was like 3 or 4 family houses. And the 2, 3 streets over, there was another family house. You know, so another next city next door was another family house. I was going to school with my cousin, so the whole environment was very safe, community driven. We knew all our neighbors, so very different. Right? Yeah, we were playing in the streets.
That sounds amazing, though.
Yeah, it's total freedom.
Yeah.
And my parents, since they understood the culture, since they understood the society in Pakistan and that city, they knew everyone knew them. They felt safety, so they let us go around and do whatever we want. Obviously, I'm speaking in hindsight now. At that time,
of course, yeah.
And then when we shifted to Glasgow,
how old were you then?
So I was 7 going on 8, pretty much 8 years old.
Yeah.
Shifted to Glasgow, and we're in Scotland now. Like, and at this point, I don't even speak English, of course, right? So yeah, English is not my first language.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I want to see videos, man. When you were 7.
and I'm moving back to Glasgow with the rest of the family, and then we're sort of figuring things out now. Now I think at this point, that's when their parenting style changed, and like now we're in a very comfortable position that we can even reflect on these things right now. I think if I'm comparing it to my parents, they probably never even had a chance to like think about we have moved, this is what it's going to be like for the kids. They've moved away from family, it might be difficult, let's surround them around other families and other groups. Maybe they did, maybe I'm not giving them that credit, maybe they did, but they had so much going on.
Of course.
Right? They had so much. My dad's like, mashallah, he's a very blue collar kind of person. So with that brings a lot of challenge, a lot of stress, and a lot of they have their own issues. So he moved to the UK when he was a teenager, so he's sort of grown up very independent by himself, doing everything on his own. So you have to give them that grace, at that time. But for me, it was a complete shift.
Do you remember like what you were thinking at that time, or some of the challenges from like 8? You've lived in Pakistan, and now you're changing, your culture is completely different.
I think a few things happened. Like I don't remember what I was like in Pakistan as a person. I think I was a wee guy around all family. You're comfortable wherever you're going. My uncle's coming through the door, my auntie's coming through the door, someone's giving you a bit of money to go to the shop, someone's cooking you food. It's just comfort around you, right? You feel super safe. And then when you leave, you only have your parents, and maybe my dad was going to work, so my mum was at home, she's busy with stuff, so suddenly you're kind of not left alone, but you don't really have that same wherever I'm going, whether it's school, whether it's out somewhere, it's all unfamiliar now.
Of course. Yeah,
But you
like a
don't
foreign territory.
yeah, you don't realize that when
Yeah.
you're young, right? But
Yeah.
that kind of so that changed. I would say maybe it didn't change my personality, but it must have changed the trajectory of my personality. Maybe I was heading in a direction, and suddenly it's a big shift, and then it takes you time to understand and pick things back up again.
I think that's such a good move, though. Like thinking back at it, sometimes I do think that for me, living in the UK, there are certain things that would have changed in terms of my culture. Like I wished I spent more time trying to learn the language of my mum and dad, like the Gujarati, that's the language they use.
Yeah.
And I can speak it a little bit, but nowhere near where it should be. And then for my own kids, I know that they don't understand it at all. And when my mum talks to them, I think they get few glimpses. But I think that whatever that reason for that move was, one of the big things was that you've kept your culture. I mean, that's something that maybe you can pass down as well. But yeah, for me, I feel like it's hard for me to, if I don't know it myself, how can I pass that down?
True.
As well. And so yeah, I think that's I didn't know that about you. That's quite interesting.
I think like I've got when I have this relatability. I feel like when it comes to, especially since I moved to Dubai, you're surrounded by people that are from South Asia.
You
meet people from Pakistan, not like the way we are from. Right. We are one step removed from our countries, but whereas the people that have come from Pakistan to Dubai, they're born and raised in Pakistan or India or whatever. So I feel like I have this relatability to them since I've lived there. I've experienced that. I can feel like I have that, and I'm thankful for that. Alhamdulillah. Like it was a difficult thing. It must have been difficult for them to do as well.
Of course, yeah.
But in the long term, in the long run, it's turned out to be
probably the better decision. Because like when you were talking about your father and moving, he understood that culture in Pakistan and knew what the challenges would have been. And moving to the UK, it's a completely different environment now. This is something that I think about sometimes as well, is that like they've had a lot on their plates. Same situation with my dad. He's working several jobs. His priority wasn't like with the kids at the time, simply because he had so much going on. It was more important to make sure that we had food on the table, that we were clothed, that, like these kind of things, that more important things. Whereas for us, we've got a bit more luxury where we don't have to worry as much. Alhamdulillah, we're in a position that, look, we are getting some income, and therefore we have the luxury to worry more about now raising our children. Whereas before it was, I've got to make sure you're eating. And that's the priority here. Do you understand? But also, secondly, like moving into a culture where you don't really understand Western culture as much, I think it came from a place of, I need to make sure that he stays out of drugs, don't go into crime, etc. And praise the Salah. Like for my dad, that's probably one of the key things was. And at the time, I didn't understand like what that rationale was. I just thought, okay, very, very strict. I don't know what's going on or why it's happening. I just know that, and this is, if I don't do this, I'm going to get in trouble, and that's it. But now I think there's a deeper appreciation that if he wasn't so strict, then I probably would have gone down a dark road. And I know like a lot of friends that have fallen into that trap as well, where they're in a difficult position now, or they're addicted to drugs, or they're embedded in crime in some way, and they just can't get out. And I know that, because that was the people that I was hanging around with, or in the school or classes I very likely would have been in that same position. But now I think being a dad myself, I've got more of a deeper appreciation for that. Do you think as a parent, now you're a parent, do you appreciate more your parents?
No, I definitely do. I definitely do, but I don't think it's in the way that I thought I would. You hear that all the time. When my parents used to tell me as well, they're like, when you have kids, then you'll understand, And then sometimes I've had the kids and I'm asking them like, I understand, but I still don't think that was 100%. That could have been slightly different, but they're like,
do you have any examples of?
I don't know. I think my parents, so going back to the top of the timeline, when we moved, they were of the similar mentality that we need to protect the kids from everything that's sort of out there in the world that we don't completely maybe understand, but we know it exists. And again, they've lost, since we've moved away from family in our community, we've lost that shield of protection over them. So the only way they could maintain that shield was to keep us in front of them, which was just to keep us right next to them. Not we can't really go far. We can't really go out a lot. We can't just hang out in places. Even just to go to the park and play football, it can't be for too long, or it's the little things.
Rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
slowly and they were always very different to like the friend group I was around. They had much more freedom and
Freedom.
flexibility,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
usually that's because they had family and cousins around, and there was again a sense of we don't feel so alone here. It's other people that we know are around here. So that protection somewhat extends away from their own house. So the parenting technique was go get your education, go to the mosque, the masjid, and do your Quran and come back. And, whatever you need at home, we'll provide you at home. So our home life was very different to like the outside life. I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
maintain that Pakistani kind of
Yeah, that traditional household.
traditional
Yeah, yeah,
Pakistani
yeah.
home. Like we spoke Urdu and Punjabi at home to my parents, and then we spoke English between us as siblings. So there's like three languages flying about.
Yeah.
And then you go out in society, and it's a complete different society to like what you have at home.
Different type of cultures.
Yeah, so it's that kind of dual culture that we
Yeah,
all live
yeah,
with,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And this is probably why it's made you a bit more like aware of other cultures as well, because you're more
100%.
into
Yeah,
like Western culture, you know what the values are and what's expected, but
yeah.
also more traditionally, I think you're aware of what's needed as well. How were your parents when it came to friends? Did they have like specific rules, or were the friends allowed at home, or
It's funny because my mom is so my mom and my dad are very different when it comes to these things. My mom is like a very social, bubbly kind of person. So
Okay.
she'll make friends with anyone in the room. She'll be like everyone's best friend. She's like all of the grandkids. They're like her favorite person because she's
Yeah.
just like a kid at heart, still at her
Yeah, yeah,
age.
yeah.
Whereas my dad, I think through his life of coming to the UK when he was a teen, then experiencing just hardships and just challenges, that he's just very doubtful of people in general.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he doesn't, he takes him a long time to completely trust
Warm up to
people,
someone.
warm
Yeah.
up and just trust them and be like, okay, that's a good person right there. Yeah. So it's informed by his experiences, so he can't help it. That's just the way he feels.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially like when I was growing up, and he would be, like, because the people that he's dealt with usually come into, because he was in the restaurant business for a while, and people that would come maybe in takeaways and things that he would deal with weren't like the nicest people sometimes, or people
Yeah.
at 1 a.m. Under the influence, are
Yeah,
not giving
yeah,
him
yeah.
the best sort of
Impression.
impression of what society holds,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
So for him, it was like, forget this. Pakistan the best. Don't, yeah. When you go out the house, just be mindful that these people, you might come across
Just be
people that
careful.
are, just
Yeah.
be wary, be careful. So when it came to friends, he was very quick to be sometimes like, here, just you're not going to go to their house or whatever, because just for
So
protection
yeah,
again.
yeah. So something
Yeah.
that he might see where actually that may not be so good for my child. I think when I was younger, the reason why I asked this question is that I felt that my parents were the same. Like when I had friends, they were very particular, or don't spend too much time, or there were certain rules and restrictions. I just
Yeah.
felt that they weren't too comfortable. And I think when you're younger, you just want to make friends, as many friends as you can. You're quite naive.
Yeah.
You don't see red flags sometimes as well. And your parents or my parents, they probably went through the experiences a bit more. They've been burnt a few times.
Yeah.
They're a bit more wary, or they'll see things where they don't really want to point out someone's flaws, but they'd rather just say, actually, let's not spend too much time with this person.
I think that was the same thing, but a lot of times the way they would communicate that wouldn't make sense. And then this is the point, probably, when I'm making friends, I'm trying to hold on to those friends. It's kind of when you're a teenager, when you're getting a bit older.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're just like, you think you're right about everything, right? Like every teenager, you think that they don't understand and you understand, and then you don't really get that they have
Yeah.
more years and more wisdom than you do, and maybe they're seeing things that we're not. But at that time, it's like, alhamdulillah, the good thing was, like, a lot of my friends were the ones I made in the masjid, not the ones that, like, I had a similar experience where in school there was, the ones that were off over here doing drugs, ones over here studying really hard and playing cricket, but we were all sort of together. So the influences were always there. But growing up, I always believed that I wasn't easily influenced. Like, I thought I was all right. Like, I could stay around the people that were doing those things, but I didn't really feel like that would put over. And again, I think in hindsight, it's probably wrong. No one is invincible to like influence you. Obviously, long enough, eventually you will warm up to those things that in day one you thought were completely wrong, but eventually you're thinking, it's not so bad. You've seen it enough times around you.
As in, I think the biggest trick would be, he does drugs, but he's a good person.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean
yeah.
that they don't go in hand in hand. You can be
Yeah.
a good person and still do drugs. It's just the fact that after a period of time, there may be a time where you're particularly vulnerable and you think, oh, let me just have one.
That's right.
And I know for me, I'm quite an addictive person. Like, whatever I do, I get addicted to it.
Yeah.
So, especially when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I know that if I did try to do something like that, then I think it would have been game over for me, because I know people that tried when I was younger, and even now, married, kids, there'll be evenings, weekends where they'll still be, because they feel now it's
Yeah,
not because they
yeah.
want to, they have to.
They have to.
And why would I expose myself to that? Especially, there's no benefit.
There
They
isn't,
literally, like, people can go into the science, but I'm saying, like, socially, like, there's other ways for you can drink coffee if you really want to
You can
socialize.
drink really good coffee. Yeah.
Or you can-
At 11 p.m. No, I think sometimes it's you don't understand what some people are going through in their own home life when they're growing up, when they're younger, what influences they're having that brings them to these points where they're so free flowing when it comes to like, you know, whatever the stuff that we would consider as like our major sins, or stuff that you shouldn't really get involved in, that perhaps going to lead you down a path that is not going to be good, even though they're aware of that, because everyone's usually aware of that in society. If you start doing, say, gambling, for instance, that you can build an addiction very quickly, regardless of whether you're a religious person or not. That can lead you down a path that's not great. But I feel like you don't really know what people are going through when they get to that point.
Yeah, there's always a backstory somewhere.
Always.
And when you know the person well enough, you understand why, and you can gain that understanding. So let's move forward there. So you finished school. University was in Scotland as well?
Yeah.
Is it free? You guys?
So you know, if you know anyone that's Scottish, I know you know a few people.
Yeah.
Nobody leaves Scotland for uni since it's free. Why would you leave? Right?
Is it still the case now? Or?
Still the case, yeah.
Wow.
So if you leave school and you manage to get into uni, your uni's free.
Wow.
And then on top of that, if you do, say you're studying something in the sciences, which qualifies you, say for instance, you're finished school, you don't have the grades to get into medicine or into dentistry.
Yep.
I think there may be one other, I can't remember, but say medicine and dentistry you can get in. They allow you to do an undergrad, which is paid, and then apply for postgrad, and I think is also
paid as well.
Paid, so you could do like 9 years of uni.
Yeah.
And you become a doctor at the end. It's all paid.
That's it.
So.
If you want to go uni, you just go to Scotland.
You have to you have to live. You have to be born in.
Is there a requirement where you have to be in Scotland for a certain number of years before you apply for university?
I'm not sure. I think if you're born in Scotland and then if you live there, I think there is. So
next time someone has a kid, just go to Scotland.
Go straight away. Just
leave
the baby leave them there.
Yeah. That's really good, because I've heard that before and I was like, that's amazing. Because in the UK, I remember, like, before it was free. No, before you were paid to go. Right. Then it became free, and then it was like 1,000 a year. And then when I was going uni, it was 3,000 a year. Then 9,000 now, and I don't know whether it's changed now or not. But the last I heard, it was 9,000 a year, and that's crazy, because then people are still paying student loans for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of a challenge. You know, when you were going to university, what did your parents say in terms of what degree you should be doing?
No, so it was interesting. When I got to my point, I'm the youngest of three. When I got to me, they were more focused on my sort of religious education.
Okay, yeah.
I think they picked me to be their sort of be the Maulvi of the house. Somehow, I don't know why they selected me, but they went, "You will be the one to take us to."
You're the chosen one.
No, I think they just decided that, right, you're gonna go. So I was in mosque from like 8 till 17, like every day.
What do you do till then?
What do you mean? What did I do?
Like
just mosque.
So you go mosque,
yeah,
and then you'll do Nazira, where you learn to read the Quran.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll do further ed classes, and then you did Hafiz class.
It was all Hifz. This was all.
Oh, you did Hifz, yeah. You finished.
Yeah, maybe, but we say
in the same,
if you ask any people that have done Hifz, they will say you're never finished.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, I've been through the Quran.
Okay, all right, yeah, I get you.
And memorization, so I memorize the Quran, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
The retention is
ongoing. A lot of work to be done for life. Yeah. So they picked me for that, and then at school they were on top of me to make sure I was fine, but it wasn't. I think by that point maybe they were a bit burnt out as well. By that point they were just making sure that I wasn't sort of losing my way too much.
Yeah,
and just make sure I was on track. But when I sort of was finishing school, I didn't really have a clue what I wanted to do anyway. So I just sort of.
So when you picked your your degree, what factors did you pick? Did
So
come into that?
my parents never really had much input
Nothing at
into
all.
that. Not much, because
Yeah.
they just wanted me to go to uni,
Okay.
and I can't really remember, to be honest, exactly what conversations were being had, but it wasn't really let's
Yeah.
sit down, let's discuss what's available. It
Yeah.
was more, let us know what you're going to select. I think that by that point there was a lot going on at home
Mm.
that might have just went under the radar. And I'm
Yeah.
like, they're asking me, have you done your application? And I'm
Yeah.
saying, I did that 2 months ago. What did you apply
Ah,
for? So it was one of
it was like
those
an afterthought. Yeah.
situations, where they were more concerned about, you go in mosque
Yeah,
and
your religious aspect, and I
yeah,
think that was
yeah.
very similar in my household. Where when I went to university, I'll be brutally honest, I just did what my friends did. Like I didn't even think about what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't think about what the future job availability is, and I did law, by the way.
Mashallah.
Don't say mashallah because I never even
Still though,
pursued it
yeah.
at all. I'll be honest, mashallah, you'll take it back now. Is that Suits was very popular at the time. Yeah,
It's just as good.
yeah.
It's just
So
as good.
I thought, you know what, maybe,
Bro, I can
maybe
see
there's
why.
some, but I didn't pursue it at
You
all.
just like the opening theme, right?
Yeah, but by the time by the end of the third year, I just didn't have as much interest. There was a lot of
Yeah.
reading a lot of cases, and the cases were interesting, but I just couldn't see myself in that. But it was too late now. I was like in my third year, and I did well in terms of like the grade I got, but I just didn't have that much
Yeah.
passion for it. So then I had to think a little bit more about. I wished I did before was just think a bit more about, okay, what do I like? And this is something I've talked about before. Is you got to find what your passion is
Yeah.
and what you're good at, and then try to merge the two.
True.
And
But
like, as a father now, when Issa's at the stage where if he chooses to go university, those are the two things that when they converge, then that's the likelihood. You're increasing your chances of success, basically. And at that time, I didn't think at all.
No.
I just, let's just go ahead and
Were
see.
you ever? Do you remember if when you were selecting what you were going to do at uni? Do you remember even having points where you could reflect, or having had experiences up until when you must have been 17, 18, right? Where you've experienced something other than just maybe the masjid and the school, and you've maybe went and seen someone do something interesting, or you've been exposed to some other career paths?
So what I did, like even in college, the college I went to, law was very popular. So all my friends did it. They had some enthusiasm for it as well. But there was nothing else. Like I did some work experience. So I did in summer, I did like 2 weeks at a law firm. But to be fair, it was dry. Like we were just listening to like transcripts of people like in a prison discussion, and then we just have to write it down, and that's all it was. So I don't know. I just thought maybe in my mind, maybe it was just I'd listen to lots of different cases, and the job would be different from time to time, and the pay would probably be good.
Yeah.
But then by the end of the third year, I realized that there's so many different jobs out there. But I've never thought that having a law degree stopped me from pursuing other careers and industries. Like even now, I'm in education, and I found my way, alhamdulillah. So
do you reckon? I lost my question. Do you think? So how much do you reckon your upbringing and the fact that similarly how our parents were trying to instill stability and security within us, so whatever we were doing is make sure you have your education, get your job, get your degree, and so they wanted us to have what maybe they never had, which was just stability, about space to breathe, about extra money.
I think that whatever happened, I knew that my path was going to be school, college, university.
So you before you even had a chance to think about
and
it.
to be fair, I've not even thought about it before. This is the first time, but I just knew this is the path.
But why do you reckon?
I just like exactly what you said. I just think that for them, they never had that opportunity, and for them, it was more the fact that whatever happens, you have something to fall back on. You have some credentials. So now, for example, I'm here in Dubai. I would never have been able to come here and do the job I'm doing if I didn't have a degree, even though it's just a piece of paper. I think it's still important for me where I am. I think the world is still in a place where you need credentials. And because I have a British passport and the university is in the UK, it has some credibility.
Yeah.
And that allows me to get the kind of job that I want to get. So I think that was probably something that they wanted anyway, and they would have allowed me. When your kids grow up, would you make them follow the same path?
I don't think so. Not necessarily. Maybe they're still young. I think once they hit the school system, I feel like once you hit the school system, you like end up on this motorway or highway that is just moving very fast. I feel like before then you're driving on country roads and then you hit this motorway. I feel like everyone that I speak to is just head down and it's just forward. And I feel like there doesn't really give you, and I mean, I'm not there yet, but it seems like you're on this sort of, very long path to a clear end, clear milestones. And you just want to hit those milestones at the right times and make sure that your kids are developing through that properly. And I think that gives every parent a lot of sense of, again, that security and that feeling of, right, I'm doing the right thing for the kids. They're getting the right education, they're getting good grades, they're going to extracurricular classes, and they're doing all of that. But I think the things that I've always tried to like have in my own head, whatever I'm doing right now or whatever I'm going to do in the future, is try and not think of things so in such a rigid frame. Be stuck in that box of like, this must be the way. And I feel like, we've heard it so many times before. It's the education system creates good workers, or it does this, that, and the other. But I don't think it's necessarily true. But I think for a lot of people, it does. It's great, but it can also be limiting in ways. So I'm constantly looking at my daughter, and when my son grows, I'll always be looking at them, going, right, they're here, but is this actually working? So I've been around to close family members who've looked at that same situation and went, we don't think it's working. It's actually doing more harm than good in certain ways. Let's just remove them. We're going to homeschool them. So that would have probably not been a possibility for me before. But now that I've seen someone very close to me do that, I think, okay, that's suddenly it's on the cards.
You're more comfortable because you know someone that's gone through that experience.
Or like I've met people that have not been to uni but have become very successful. Not just in financially, but successful in the way that the skills that they developed, the kind of person that they've become, the life experiences that they've had. And I think, okay, if you spend from 18 to 30 doing a lot of that until 30s hit and you're in your parenting years, 12 years of really rich life experience, is that how valuable is that? Would you need to replace that with that piece of paper again? So it's that way where you have to look at the kids and say, right, maybe if this little one just loves history, Bismillah, only go to history, go learn about history.
Indiana Jones Part 2.
Yeah, but if one of them is like on it with whatever else,
so you just want to more focus on what their passion is and then pursue it. Is there anything that you wouldn't allow them to be? I'll give an example. When Issa was young, all he wanted to do was be a dustbin man. That's it. So every Wednesdays he used to wait near the window and just look for the dustbin man.
Right.
And then he'd make my wife like give them snacks and stuff like that, and he'd go and shake their hands like literally for like a year or two.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm just thinking, shall I encourage this or shall I tell him no? But if I tell him no, I think he'll just want to be a dustbin man more. Thankfully, he's grown out of the dustbin man phase. Like, they literally, like, my wife does this thing where at the start of every school year, there's certain questions like what your favorite food is and what you want to be when you grow up. And it was like dustbin man for 2 years. And I used to like get stressed out. And I was like, all right, now it's changed to pilot. Alhamdulillah. So I was like, all right, let's encourage that a bit more.
I had that for a bit,
So, but now he's proper into planes and he knows the different types of planes. And when you go to MCC, you'll see if you go on the third floor on the last exit, you just park your car there every minute or two. There's planes landing, especially at night, and you literally just see it one after another, and he just loves it. So we were there for like 15-20 minutes once, and he just kept looking at planes.
MashaAllah.
So I feel a bit more relaxed now.
Nice.
Otherwise, he might be cleaning your bins soon, man. If you need someone to clean the bins, give me a shout.
Bro, it's mad. So many little boys do that for some reason. Right? They want to be like firemen or dust. I think they love these little roles that have a truck involved.
I think that's what it is, man.
Yeah, my little nephew went through a phase where he could name every single type of like digger, excavator, tractor, different equipment that goes on. You're tiny. But,
how do you know all this?
But he's got them all lined up, and that's his whole world. Yeah.
But yeah, I think from moving back to your point is that even now, sometimes I feel like it's ingrained in my mind that if someone doesn't have a degree, subconsciously I used to think, oh, this person's not educated then.
Right.
But the reality is that's not the case, because it's just something that we're used to. That's a train of thought that we're used to. Whereas there'll be so many people that didn't go to university, but they're still very intelligent, highly successful. It's just, I think when I was growing up, I had to equate the two. Degree means smart, intelligent. But the reality is that going through university myself, I didn't really study much. Like maybe a week or two before the exams, then I started studying. The rest of the year was just like I wasted a lot of time in university. And even then, you're literally cramming everything in 1 or 2 weeks. but then all the skills that you use, I don't think I've used it much.
Yeah, I've always viewed university after uni as uh, sort of a measuring device that you have the aptitude to learn at a higher level. That somebody you can show somebody, like the way you said, you did law, but then beyond that, you never pursued law. You went into other fields, and now you're in teaching, mashallah. So similarly, I did engineering, but I went into engineering, but I could use engineering to go into something else. It just shows that I'm capable of achieving a degree, this higher form of learning. I can get through it.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
I can, in a professional environment, I can I can hold my
yeah,
own.
it's smart enough to grasp the concepts you need.
I think that's what it
Yeah.
is sometimes. I think with the kids, I was thinking about this as well, is I feel like I want them to get to a position, and I think we all do this, we want them to have what we never had in a way. And we touched on this earlier, is that when they're maybe 16, 17, I want them to have experienced somewhat enough things that they can say that I'm really interested in. Coming back to history, I'm really interested in history.
You love history or
because I
something?
like history. I'm really interested in history, and I would say, okay, let's try and figure out where you can get the best history education. Let's not go for lackluster, mediocre, BTech education. Because I went to a uni, I did engineering. It wasn't obviously the best engineering. Maybe if I was one of the universities that had the best engineering courses, the best lecturers, the teaching, the facilities, then maybe because I did have an interest in it, maybe that would have grown and blossomed a bit more. But so for them, it's okay. We want to do this. There's no strict timeline. You can take your time and get to that point. Is it Cambridge or Oxford or whatever? Let's aim for that. Let's try and go for.
Yeah.
If we're really about it, let's be about it. Let's not do dilly dallying and
Yeah.
just do something because, again, for that piece of paper, forget
Absolutely,
the
yeah,
paper,
yeah.
forget the credentials, forget what's going to happen after that. Because there are a lot of people, I feel like in our time, would pick degrees that, like we touched on earlier, is maybe there's a good salary beyond that, there's good money, there's
Yeah.
stability there. So inshallah, like we can get to a point where my wife and I can give them that stability and that security, that when you're now getting to a point where you're 18, 19, you're not worrying about how am I going to pay my bills, really,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I feel like we live in a world now, if you're clever enough,
You'll
you
be
can
okay.
figure it out. You can get a job. You can
Yeah.
figure out, if it's just bare money, you can figure out how to make money. But if you're going into education, into university to learn, then yeah, let's try and learn. Let's not try and think about, let me do something so then I can get a role at some company.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of thinking about it. I think now we can take it to the next level with our kids
Yeah.
when it comes to education, if they choose to follow that path. So let's move on from university, and so what do you do? Let's say marriage. When you were getting married, did you ever think about, like? So I'll give an example for me. So at a certain point, I was looking to get married, and typical Asian thing where your dad's like finding people. It was like a semi-arranged thing, by the way.
Yeah.
And meeting different people. But when I'm talking to these potential people, I was asking more about kids. Do you want kids? Firstly, that's an important question. But initially I didn't even think about asking, and then later I realized that actually sometimes people don't want to go down that path. But when it came to marriage, did you have specific questions that you would ask when it came to children and the upbringing of children, and was that important for you? And the reason I asked this is because for me it was very important, because this is, for me, I really wanted kids, and I needed to make sure that the partner that I end up choosing, that we have the same ideas in terms of how we want to raise our children. So it became very simple for me. It's the person I choose to marry, I wouldn't mind having a daughter like that. And that was this, because before I was just really complicated. People give me so much advice of what to look for, and I thought, let me just dumb it down. The thing that I like to just try to simplify it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So I thought, if I won't mind having a daughter like the person I choose to marry, then alhamdulillah, I'm fine. That is the person that you need to choose.
No, honestly, it's very, very similar. I think I went through, and this is a good way to think about it as well. I feel like I've sort of said the same sort of thing to other people that have asked me the same kind of question, is that when I was first looking to get married, I'm really confused for a while. I didn't really know, it was difficult for me to do a tick box exercise. I'm not a very as long as we have a checklist and these things get done,
Yeah.
I don't even know, everything goes off. I feel, I need
How
to,
you feel, your gut.
I need to like have a gut feeling about things. I need to, the intuition everyone has, and like I try and trust mine.
Romantic
And
guy,
paddle,
man.
paddle especially.
Yeah.
So then when again I was meeting people and I was sort of discussing things. I was looking at them through the lens that this person will be the mother for my children. She's going to be their first teacher. They will love her more than they love me. I
Yeah.
just came to terms with that. I just like
You
accept
gotta
that,
accept
right?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just reality. That's life.
Yeah.
The Jannah is going to be below her feet.
Mm.
All of that. I'm like, yeah. So let me just be real about it. Let me marry someone that that's what I'm looking for here. So that's the lens I was looking. And then when it came to the questions, I wasn't necessarily asking them about how would you bring up children, what would you feel about that. I think, to be honest, yeah, when I met my wife, we just discussed we both wanted kids. And what we understood very quickly was that we seen things through the same lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we put Islam first. So the decisions that we make, we can all hold each other accountable. When it comes to the simple things like praying, but then when it comes to the more complex issues of family dynamics and all sorts of stuff, we can always fall back on Islamically.
Well, yeah.
And Islam always takes that. Our relationship is like through God and then down.
Yeah.
And that's the way we're taught to handle these things. So
Yeah. So here's a question for you. If your kid comes to you one day and says, I'm looking to get married, what should I look for? What would you say?
Oh man, I would same kind of thing, to be honest. I feel like by that point, I want them to have. Again, I find it so difficult to think about the future because I feel like I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore. Like I'm thinking about my daughter; she's 3, right? So I don't even know what her.
But if you had to say, let's say 3 things, like this person that she marries has to have 3 qualities. What 3 would it be? So I'll give
I'm
me.
going to talk about my son.
So
weird.
Yeah.
I'm still at a point there where I can talk about my daughter getting married. I think, like, yeah. Sorry, you go first.
So what I would say, because I've thought about this as well, is that firstly, Islam will always come first. So this person, what I want to do is try to make it as simple as possible. So there's no ambiguity, and he needs to pray Salah. That's it.
Yeah.
If he prays the Salah 5 times a day, not he's going to when he gets married, one day I'm trying to get better. No, is he praying now? Because one of the biggest mistakes is that when people are looking to get married, I pray a few, but when I get married, I'm going to pray all of them. I said, always marry the person as they are now. And then if they, and that's it. Because what happens then is if you get married on promises of who they will be one day and they don't, then there'll be bitterness, and it just won't work that way. You just, if you're happy with the way they are now, then accept them and assume they will never change. So Salah would be the first thing and most important thing for me, because if he has Salah, then he's accountable to Allah, and if he's accountable to Allah, then everything else will follow.
Yeah.
And I think if you had to choose one thing, it'd be that.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I feel like the other 2, I don't know why I said 3, to be honest. I just had one. If he's got that, then everything else will follow, right?
Honestly, it's sometimes as simple as that. Like I've had people around me that are great people sometimes, and people always ask, like, people to get married, etc. And I think with that Salah component, I just don't take people seriously in a way where I don't think that they're not there yet with their own life. They don't have things under control, especially if you're a Muslim, of course, right?
Yeah.
Then if you say you're a Muslim and you're if you're lost, sometimes people are lost in the dunya, right? That's different. You have to give them a bit of grace. But if you're just living day-to-day life and you're in an environment where you can pray and you should be praying, then if you're not praying yet, you're not a serious person yet. You've not really come to the point yet where, like we said, you don't really see the world where the way I see it, the way I would see it for my own kids, the people that I would want to bring into the family. So, and I think when it comes to like choosing people sometimes we get caught up in this world where, especially when you get people recommended for ishtas and to meetups and stuff like that, we go on this whole checklist thing. It's like people are still people. You have to kind of have this. Somebody might be great on paper and come from a good family or whatever, but bro, can you actually like have a conversation? Can you see yourself sitting doing nothing with this person and just being around this person, talking to this person, relying on them? So like, and a lot of times that's nothing to do with kids or Islam or anything. But if you don't have that strong foundation, Like, how are you? What are your kids? What are you?
What are you gonna talk about?
Yeah, what are you gonna talk about? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
after a while, and then
Yeah,
you
what are
just-
you going yeah, are you interested in
Yeah,
person?
yeah,
Not
yeah,
as in
yeah.
just the looks or whatever, but not even like personality, but like, are you interested in who they are, what they like to do?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have like some commonality? Is there something is there something there that exists, or is it just
Some mutual ground.
do you just want to go on holiday and
and just take
do
pictures.
honeymoons and that's it?
So let's move forward then to the time where now you found out that you're gonna have a baby girl.
Oh, bro.
What are your thoughts going through your
I
head?
was not ready.
Yeah.
I was not ready at all.
Yeah.
I think it hit me like it sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was just sort of.
But firstly, how many years were you married before you found out you had a child?
So we were married for, but 22 and a bit.
That's a good amount of
So not
time
a
because
lot,
then you get
yeah.
time to develop your own foundation.
And we had a bit of COVID in there as well, so a lot of time together. And
Yeah, but the reason why I ask that is that when people get married, sometimes they'll ask me, like, how long should we wait? And what I would usually say is that if you don't know the person, then at least a year or two where you develop a foundation, because as soon as kids come, that relationship takes a backseat.
Yeah, you turn into project managers.
That's it.
Suddenly you're in a different role, and you can't.
So-
two and a bit years.
So what kind of what were your thoughts in your mind? So ton of bricks.
Ton of bricks. I think suddenly I turned into sort of father provider mode, and all the insecurities kicked in. And I think a lot of the stuff that sort of I learned from watching my dad just kicked in, and I didn't know how to like manage it mentally. Like it was just sort of flying about in my head.
Who could you go to advice at that time?
Nobody.
No,
Not really. I think again, going back to that. No, not that I couldn't go to, that I didn't go to.
Yeah,
That I wouldn't go to. Like I'm just not the kind of person now, or even then, that easily just finds people for advice.
I get you.
Going back to like just the way I grew up, it was very much sort
You
of
figure it out yourself.
you're on yourself. It's not. It is even coming into my brain as an option. I'm not even like, this is a difficult thing. Let me find someone who's been through this before and ask them.
Yeah.
This is a hard thing. Must figure it out. Must live with it. Have to just go through it. So, but I had my wife to like
to
share that and say.
Yeah. Well, what were your like priorities at the time?
I think at that point I was in Glasgow. It was COVID. You know, the future, my immediate future didn't look that clear. So I had my job and still have got my job, alhamdulillah. Like, but it was just COVID hit, everything turned upside down. I was just like, I don't know if we're going to go back to this. Will I be able to provide? What am I going to do? You know, I need to like provide X, Y, and Z. You know, we go into that sort of father mode, and you're like, I need to have
survival mode. Yeah.
Suddenly, you have to have everything sorted
In
and
place.
organized and available, and it needs to all be there. So, and that situation wasn't there yet. So, I think if somebody was there to tell me, here, just chill out. You're just having a kid. You know, you're not becoming the president, and then everyone does it. And that voice was at the back of my head. I was like, this doesn't need to be that difficult. But immediately it was that sort of knee-jerk reaction.
Did you find that one person was more stressed out and the other one was being a bit calm?
Yeah,
Or was it just a madhouse and you're both just stressed?
No. I think my wife, then for her, other anxieties and stuff kicked in. So that, just obviously like she's going through pregnancy, right? And we can only watch and be like, it's going to be okay. But
You feel a bit useless at the time, right?
You are a little bit, but then I'm just trying to do everything else to help manage things. And she's a soldier, so she went through it in her own way. And sometimes you have to give people grace to like go through a situation in the way that they have to go through it. Even if you're going through it together, they might take their own path to get to the same end.
Yeah.
So alhamdulillah, like that first one was obviously like everyone's first child.
The day your daughter was born, how did you feel? Can you remember the moment?
Yeah, I can remember. I remember all of it. I almost passed out in the.
Why are you passing out?
I was so.
You're not giving birth, man.
But I was just. I don't know. In my brain, suddenly it was like, I don't know, bro. I was just having negative thoughts for some reason.
Okay.
And there was a
What kind of things were you thinking?
I was like, again, going back to reading too much history and stuff, people back then there wasn't modern medicine, so a lot of women would like not make it through childbirth and children complications. So I was just sitting there doing just just duas were in the corner.
praying.
Even the midwife was like, "Are you all right?" And I would just sit, eyes closed. I was just honestly, Ayatul Kursis were flying around the room. Everything was just going, but I couldn't help it. I didn't know what to do. I had to just sit there, right? You know, it's like you have to just sit there and maybe stand up sometimes and sit back down again. But that's
You look like you're doing something.
that's about as much as you can do.
Can you remember the moment you saw her?
Yeah, so when my daughter was born, there was like she had a bit of an infection.
Okay.
So there was like slight complications right at the very beginning. But when I saw her, I was.
What were you thinking?
I don't even know, bro. It wasn't like I was waiting for like a thing, but I just kept staring at her.
Yeah.
I remember just keep staring at her.
It's a bit surreal, right?
Yeah, I was just staring at her, just looking at her, looking at her eyes, then looking at her mouth, and looking at her nose.
Yeah.
I just kept looking at all her features and going like, and then the thought would come back in like a boomerang and go, "That's your daughter," and then that would like freak me out. And then I'm just staring at her, then I go, "That's your daughter," and then so it was this like I'm looking at a baby, I'm looking at a newborn, and then I'm realizing it's my daughter, and it's all kind of happening at once.
Mine was the opposite. So when Issa was born, I was stressed because there was a lot of complications.
Right.
That resulted in him having this huge like cone head.
Oh yeah.
So his head was like a full-on cone.
Mashallah, wow.
And I wasn't worried about it. I was like, is his head going to be like that forever? Because people are going to diss him and they're going to diss me as well. Because I'm giving like, I'm giving, because I'm like, I'm just going to have cone-headed babies.
Head baby,
And I was stressing, like the baby just was literally born.
Yeah.
And I just went to the nurse and said, is his head going to be like that for forever? Or is it going to change or whatever? I said, no, don't worry, it will. And I was stressed because it was really late at night and we'd been up for like literally nearly 2 days. And I thought, okay, now he's born, he's okay, he's stabilized. Let me go. But when I left, the last thing I saw was his cone head. so all night I was just stressing. I was just like, I just started thinking, and I was just stressing all night. And I thought, the next day I was praying at night. In the morning I came, alhamdulillah, it was normal shape. And then I could start worrying about everything else. So my stress wasn't like, it was just like this cone, man.
No, I get it. But the good thing my wife did, bro, she prepared me like crazy. She made me go to these like online classes.
No way.
She made me watch all these, not made me, she requested that I watched.
Encouraged you.
Because see, like again, I go off of, so I was saying to her, like, people have been kids since it says Allah created us Adam alayhi salam. So since then, people have been having children. You know, this is innate. I believe like this is innate. I've been around kids like when I was younger. I mean, there's nothing to me. It's fine, whatever. You'll be okay. I'm all right. I'm all right. But it was good that I got that because that kind of stuff. Yeah, there was like little bits here and there. But it wouldn't faze me because I had seen all these tutorials and like,
you knew what was happening.
I went to this webinar online thing. All these dads, this dad is there talking about like, you know, right, the first time you become a father, this is what's going to happen.
That's really good though. I didn't know there was stuff like that.
Yeah,
I would watch that if I could.
Bro, there was like four or five guys in there. I'm sure if that was for the women, there'll be like, you know, hundreds because they pay much more attention to that.
But was it like a face-to-face session?
It was COVID, so it was they do face-to-face, but because it was COVID, it was just but I thought it was very helpful. I thought that would have been like my wife is still in this WhatsApp group that or something is an app I think or a WhatsApp group, I'm not sure, but it was all the women that became mums on the same day.
No way.
So they share
How
stuff.
did they find each other?
I don't even know. I think it's an app you sign up on and then it puts you in this big chat. So imagine hundreds, I don't know how many people are on that app. Imagine hundreds of dads that became fathers on the day Isa was born, right? And then you're like, oh, he's 5, he's doing this. Then somebody's like, oh, my one did that, he did that, but I didn't. So there's solutions.
Because they're at the same stage. So the challenges are going to be the same as well.
Yeah.
It's really good. I might ask you for that later.
It's interesting, yeah.
So baby's born.
Yeah.
What was the first year like for you?
Again, we were in COVID. So she was born in 2021. And alhamdulillah, like I was home. I got to be so involved. I loved it, man. Did
you find it difficult to transition? Because before she's born, your time is your own, essentially. And now the baby's here. And now your priorities shift. And you don't have... your everything that you do is around based on her schedule now.
I think it was great in that sense because, you're right. Before she's born, the time is our own. But bro, we're just spending a lot of time doing a lot of nothing. In reality, like there was nothing meaningful in what I was doing. And suddenly I'm putting her to sleep or those little pockets of time that I got then to do some work or play some Warzone, and they were much sweeter suddenly because they felt nicer since then I have to go back to her or we're going out or, you know, you're around that, you build a routine around your little one. So obviously a big shift in the way for me, suddenly I'm a father. My wife's my mother. We're parents. We have these new titles and roles.
Yeah. What was the most difficult thing for you? If you had to pick one thing. So for me, it was getting used to a child crying was difficult for me. Like, and I mentioned this before, that just the sound itself was just like gnawing in my brain, and I found it so hard, and I didn't think I'd ever get past it. But at the time, you just think, is this what it's going to be like every single day, every time I have a child? Alhamdulillah, over years, now I can just, the kids are crying and it's okay, like it's normal, we can handle it. At that time, I couldn't think.
Did you ever feel like when Isa was born, right? You at the beginning when he was crying, or did you feel like okay, I need to do something? You need to fix it?
There's an urgency there because I don't know why he's crying.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think when you talked about Nate, I disagreed a little bit because I felt my wife knew, like, she was a lot more nurturing, motherly from day one.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, that was something I had to learn. Or I had bad habits where I just used to get so annoyed when it was crying, and I had to calm myself down and be a bit more relaxed towards him. Whereas for her, I felt it was just, and maybe it was just me, but I felt I had to teach myself or unteach like bad reactions, and then try to be a bit more.
Definitely. I had that. I had the worst, the hardest part at the beginning was at night, because we slept in the same room. She was next to the bed. Like I couldn't sleep. It was like this crazy level of anxiety all night. Where
like you think that something's happened to her.
You know, okay. My wife's gonna hate me for saying this, but the stuff that I learned, right? Like I wasn't aware of these kind of things, but suddenly the stuff that I was learning I felt like it wasn't necessarily helping me. So a lot of the information was great, but it kind of put these anxieties in my brain. And now I have all this information where I'm like, okay, if this could happen, that could happen, that can happen. And
suddenly, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Like, for example, for me, for that was like cot death. I heard like a random thing, and the thing was, I didn't research it enough to know that it's 1 in X amount.
Right.
I just heard about it. So every time I used to say, can I hear him? Is he breathing?
Yeah.
And my ear's like right next to his head. And he's breathing. All right.
Like for some reason, I was just like, she would be at night sleeping, and if she just, babies like make little noises, they move around. Slight movement, and I'm up and I'm looking at her, and I'm up and I'm sort of, my head's up and I'm staring at her. I'm watching to see if she like makes another move, and I'm like, okay, she's fine. Then I'll go back to sleep. Yeah. My wife never had that, so I just had this weird sort of like, I still have it where I'm just sitting there, we'll be having a chat, and I'll be like, oh, he's up. I could hear him wake up and make a little noise like way down the corridor in the room. Yeah. And I'm like, whatever, man. That's just what it is.
The other day, she fell off the bed, and I was like, all right,
yeah, like
let's go back to sleep.
Yeah, like it's fine.
Two more. I'll ask a few more questions then before our time is up. Did you feel there was a difference from one child to two?
Yeah, but not like I think the difference was suddenly like that. Those pockets of time that we had, they were even less now. So, we're even more squeezed when you want to do your own kind of thing.
Do you try to actively make sure you have time separately? I think the smallest one's too young now, so he doesn't understand much. Yeah. But like to make sure, like when they're older, I try to make sure there's a bit of time. Something I'm doing with each of them, even though the time's not as much. Yeah. So then we have that 1-to-1.
Just with the
with one child, like Isa or Adam. Like Iman's too small right now. Yeah. So she doesn't get it yet. But then I think I want to actively try to make sure I'm spending, even if it's just 10, 15 minutes doing something.
I try and when I'm around both of them, I give all my attention to my daughter. Because my son's, he's only 9 months, so he doesn't even know if I'm looking, giving him doesn't really know yet. Yeah. Whereas I just give all my attention, 90% of my attention to her, and make sure he's surviving.
He's just there.
he's on my lap. He's playing with stuff. He's fine. But when she's not there, then I can sort of focus on him and be more interactive with him.
For new parents, what advice would you give?
Just chill out.
Just relax.
I think just allow yourself to not know what you're doing and figure it out, and then let them sort of teach you a little bit as well. I think there's part of that. You have this little give and take situation, isn't it? I don't know about you, but like I feel like my daughter and my son have taught me stuff about myself. And then,
can you give me an example of that? Like one of the kids have taught you about who you are.
I think It's a difficult one. I feel like maybe it's not something they're teaching you, but it's the way they're changing you.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe they're not. She's not like, by the way, did you know that? So it's not like that, but it's maybe just through my behavior with her,
Yeah.
it's bringing me back to the way I used to be, maybe a long time back, or it's bringing out like a bit more relaxed, calm, chilled out version of myself. Because
Yeah.
I have to spend 3 hours pretending that I'm a unicorn or something. Then after
I
that,
could picture you as a unicorn.
that's a pretty good unicorn. Then after that, you can't, maybe before the kids, it was sort of, head down. Let's focus on
A bit more serious.
You're focusing on
You bring out the inner child, I think.
yeah,
Sometimes.
and for me, like that's I don't know. I enjoy that. I think
Yeah. For me, for new parents, I'd say when I first became a parent, there's more than one right way of doing something.
yeah,
Is what I would say. It's because everyone, well, let's say for example would be sleeping, putting a child to bed. There'll be 100 different opinions, and everyone's telling you this is the right way. Let's cry it out. Oh no, just tap. There's like 100 different things. Whatever you two together agree upon, just do that.
yeah.
Because like there's more than one right way to do something, and that's one of the things I thought. No, we're not doing it the right way because this person said that.
I think one other key thing I just thought of there, that's a very good point, is that when they're young, the kids are young as well, they're not seeing what you're seeing. So you have to sometimes, a lot of times, like we will say, oh, I need to go and work very hard this week and do overtime so I can provide for the children, and they can have money so they can go to uni or whatever, right? As an example. But really what the kids want is you around just to chill with them, to hang out. So it's kind of counterintuitive that you're saying you're doing it for them, but really you're doing it because you're filling some sort of insecurity within yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're like, you're filling some void. You're saying it's for them. They don't want it. They might grow up and be like, we didn't wanted that. So you're playing this game. But if you just take a step back and think, in this moment, what could I do in this moment that's gonna be good for the kids? Instead of taking them to like some amusement park and then being annoyed that they're not enjoying it and the rides and stuff, like if they just want to chill in the park outside, then do that. I feel like I've tried to do that so much, where it's just, what does she want to do right now, my little one? Let's just go through, try and see it through her eyes. But yeah,
Hamza, this has been very beneficial. I've learned a lot about you, about your childhood. I didn't know you. I knew that you obviously Pakistani, but I didn't know that you went at a young age. I think that's quite interesting, because that's one of the things that for me, I felt like I need to know more about my family tree, and I need to make an active effort, because I don't think I can follow it more than maybe 1 or 2 generations. Like my great grandparents probably get their names. Outside of that, I wouldn't know. And this, like living here in an Arab country, they're very, very big on their family tree, and they can go up several generations. Like there's one child in my school, he's a descendant of the Prophet, and he can go back all the way back to there. Wow. And I was like, wow, man, that's something that I've forgotten. And I've always said that I'll do it. I never get around to it. We're speaking to my parents and trying to create some sort of a tree.
I'll give us a suggestion. This is something I'm going to do with my parents come the next time around. I'm going to try and do this with them. So I'm going to sit one-on-one, and I'm going to get them to go as far back as they can, and give me a complete, however long it is, give me a complete rundown, and then just maybe get them together, and then get them to do one. So at least like when my kids or grandkids, they can go back and watch, and they can trace back to my parents, grandparents. They can go to that point. Yeah. So they can have at least like some sort of understanding of, because when we came from India, partition, came into the UK, I was then Dubai.
But talking about the partition, I don't know if I told you the story.
No, you
did I tell you the story? I was in school, and we were doing parents' evening. So parents come in, and then it was like 4-hour session. The last 10 minutes I was battered. But then this man and woman come in, and they're like, oh, are you Mr. Ganshi? I said, yeah, that's me. And then he said, oh, you know what? My kids don't come to this school, secondary school. They're in primary, but I just really wanted to meet you. And I was like, am I some sort of celebrity or what?
Because the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. And then he's like, I really wanted to meet you. I was like, oh, okay. He said, it's because my son's name is Muhammad Ganshi.
Oh, wow.
And then we just got to, and I was like, and he was like, oh, there's a teacher with my name as well. And for 2 years, he's been saying, I want to meet him. So I said, let's go meet him. So they were there. But what was interesting is because we sat down, and their background is Pakistani, and they were just talking about the area they're from in Pakistan. Now we opened up the map and had a look, and the part of where my parents are from and where they're from, there's literally like a line in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's a bit far out, but it's very, very close. Their borders are meeting, and I was like, there must be some history behind it. There may just be like because I don't know any Ganchis, and like maybe like one family in Leicester.
Yeah.
There may be like a whole village of Ganchis in Kashmir or
Might be.
wherever they were from. And I was like, there's the village of Ganchis. I'm gonna
That'd be
next time we
amazing.
go to Pakistan, I think I'm gonna bring you with me.
Can you imagine? That'd be incredible.
They'll just come
Well
and
done,
like,
man.
they'll all have their
Yeah.
Hamza. The prodigal son has returned.
He's back. Imagine they all look like you.
Didn't we kick you guys out? Like,
Yeah.
But that was interesting, right?
That is interesting. Very
But
interesting.
yeah, I think I want to. If there's an app that's there that does that, I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah.
Or if you're just gonna use a pen and paper, I don't know.
I think maybe do that.
Yeah.
But
But no, I really appreciate you coming on, Hamza. I know
Alhamdulillah,
I've asked you, and it was very natural of you, to be honest. I didn't feel like.
I mean, I've been in a position of trying new things or
Yeah.
something.
No, it's good.
And
It's
I
good.
think, it's difficult to do this. So props to you for doing it
No,
and
no
sticking to
problem
it. This
at all.
is like, we were talking about DJIs a few weeks ago. And subhanAllah, now you're surrounded by 3 cameras and a producer and, so inshallah, only ways upwards, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Thank you very much for coming, Hamza. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right, see you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.